So I'm going to do a quick video on an answer key for the test that we took. So please follow along. So for the first one, I'm going to go ahead and just write down the formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we have the two coordinates -1 and +2. So -1. So here is -1 on our x. So the y value that corresponds with it, right? The graph is not down, it's actually up 10. So -1, 10 is our first coordinate. The second one is 2 in x. So if I go 2 in x to get to the graph, it's not up, it's actually down at -20. So 2 comma -20. So now I just label x1, y1, x2, y2, and then I plug it in here, right? So -20 minus 10 over 2 minus -1. So I'm taking my calculator to get the fraction. How do you do this? Alpha by equals. Option number 1. You just type in exactly what you've written down. -20 minus 10. And then on the bottom, 2 minus -1. Even if you didn't put the parentheses, it'll still give you the same answer. But it's good practice. So final answer for the first question is equal to -10. Okay, next question. Question number 2. So we're going to start by squaring both sides. So the square root and the square cancel each other out. So we have 8x plus 52 is equal to x plus 8 times x plus 8. If you use box method, pause the video please and do box method here. You're going to get x squared plus 16x plus 64. Don't take my word for it. Please do this yourself and make sure that you get the same thing. And then you just bring down, the 8x plus 52. Now we want to move everything over to one side. So we're going to do that by doing the opposite. So minus 8x, that lines up with the 16x, minus 52, minus 52. So this cancels out, and I'm left with x squared plus 8x plus 12 is equal to 0. Double bubble. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 12 and that add to give us 8. And those numbers are 6 and 2. So what do we do with those numbers? We go x plus 6, x plus 2 equals 0. You set it both equal to 0. So you have x plus 6 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. To solve, you get x, subtract 6 from both sides, minus 6 from both sides, you get x equals -6. And if you do minus 2 on this side, you get x is equal to -2. If this video is going too quick, which I'm sure it's going to be, you need to make sure that you pause it, rewind, slow it down, all that good stuff, okay? So now how do you check this? So I'm going to go back to the original. Always go back to the original, okay? So I'm going to highlight this right here. And you're going to basically split this into two. The first part you're going to put into y1. Second part you're putting it into y2. So what do I mean? Everything, including the radical. So you're going second x squared to get the radical, 8x plus 52. Please don't just watch me do this. This is not TV. Please do this yourself. And the second one, x plus 8. Okay, so now we have to check these two numbers, -6 and -2. So I'm going to go ahead and you can hit graph. That's the first one, the square root of 8x plus 52. That's the second one. Look, it hits twice. So how do you check? Go to the table, so hit second graph, and we're checking -6 and -2. So look across from -2. Do you see 6 and 6? Those two numbers are the same. So that means that -2 works. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to put a check. That works. I'm going to do the same thing with -6. Pause and do this yourself, please. Across from -6, we see 2 and 2. Boom. So -6 works as well. Both answers work for that one. Okay. Number 3, from what I saw, everybody got this correct. So this is going to be the root. So this is the 6th root of x to the 5th power is going to be the answer, right? The Arlen showed us a trick, so x to the fifth, and then the 6 is at the bottom. Okay. All right. Question number 4. So this one right here, first step, this is the most common mistake is, let me pause this real quick. Okay, so the problem of all problems. So the most common mistake here is we forgot to get it equal to 0. So we have to add 13 to both sides first to do that. So now we have it equal to 0. There are no like terms here, so we need to write all three of them. 4x squared minus 12x plus 13. We need to put it in that order because this is called standard form with the x squared, then the x, then the term that's chilling by itself. And now you could do the quadratic formula, okay? So to do that, let me just go ahead and change the color real quick. So we have an A, we have a B, and we have a C. So to locate the A, you look at the x squared and you look at the number in front of it. That's a 4. To figure out what the B is, you look at the x, you look at the number in front of it. That's a negative 12. So B is negative 12. For the C, that's the number that's chilling by itself, which is 13. Okay. So now you need to write down the formula. So the formula, I gave it to you all. Negative B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. So we're going to go ahead and plug numbers in. So the first part says whatever B is, you do the opposite. So B is negative 12. The opposite of negative 12 is positive 12. So 12 plus or minus square root of B squared. So we're going to do, since the B is in negative, we're going to put negative 12 squared minus 4. It's always 4 times A times C. Let me extend this. So our A is 4 and our C is 13. A lot of you put negative 13 divided by 2 times A, which is 4. Next thing we do is you take your calculator, turn it on, go to the regular screen like this. Don't plug in the radical, plug in what's under the radical. So parentheses, negative 12, close 12, and then we're going to square it, which is right here. Then we're going to go minus 4 times 4 times 13. And you hit enter, and you get negative 64. So we're going to rewrite our new thing, right? So it's still 12 plus or minus square root of negative 64 all over. 2 times 4 is 8. So let's talk about what happens next, okay? Let's go to magenta. All right, so over here, so anytime there's a negative sign under the radical, an I comes out. So we're left with the I, and then the square root of 64 is a perfect square. Square root of 64, 8 times 8 gives us 64, so the square root of 64 is 8. So what do we do with that? Still 12 plus or minus. Now we have 8 and we have an I left, all over 8. And this is where we do our band-aid method. So 12 over 8 and 8I over 8. So over here, 12 over 8 plus or minus 8I over 8. What do we do next, right? We have 12 over 8. I can take my calculator, hit alpha, y equals fraction 12, 8, hit enter, 3 over 2. That's the same thing as 3 over 2. Plus or minus 8 over 8, they cancel. So 3 over 2 plus or minus I is your final answer. For this one right here, straight calculator for this question, I accepted it. Parentheses, 4 plus 5, the I is second, period. Period. Close up parentheses, open up again, 12 minus 10, and the I again. Okay, hit enter, and boom, 98 plus 20I was your answer for this. 98 plus 20I. If you want to do box method, you could have done that as well. I didn't even ask you for work, so I accepted this. Focus directrix, so they gave us the focus, they gave us the directrix is the x-axis right here. First step that you need to do is go halfway in between. This point right here is 4 comma negative 1. The P is one box, see that? It's literally one box here. So the P is equal to 1. Now we need to see if it's negative or positive. So how do you do that? So here's our vertex. So remember that this is the line, right? It can never cross that line. So it has to go down, right? The parabola has to go down. Since it's sad face, its P is equal to -1. And then you plug that into the formula. So the formula is y equals 1 over 4p parentheses x minus h squared plus k. So it's y equals, you have to have the y equals 1 over 4 times -1, x minus our h here is 4, our k is -1, so x minus 4 squared plus a -1. Let's simplify this. We can make this better. We have y equals 4 times -1 is -4. So 1, 4 with a negative sign in the front, parentheses x minus 4 squared. Positive times a negative is a negative, so that's -1. Final answer. Okay, we're rocking and rolling. So subtracted from, this one goes first, so 3x minus 1 minus, right, we have x plus 8 squared. Okay, so just like we did before, you do box method here, so x plus 8 times x plus 8. Literally the same thing is x squared plus 16x plus 64. You put the minus sign, bring everything down, 3x minus. So this is the part that a lot of people forgot. If there's no number here in front of this parentheses, there's an imaginary 1. So -1 times x is -1x squared. -1 times 16 is -16x. -1 times 64 is -64. You can use your calculator for all of those. Over here, 3x minus 1 just comes down. And then now all we're doing is we're combining like terms. So the -16 and the positive 3x. Ooh, my dog just said, hello. And then the -1 and the -64. Those are like terms. So what is it going to combine to be? Final answer is -1x squared. You don't need the 1, but you do need the negative. -16x plus 3x is -13x, and -1 -64 is -65. Okay, final answer. All right, this one right here, straight calculator. Okay, I don't have these buttons in my calculator because look, right, it doesn't show up, but it's apps. Do this on the calculator, please. Apps, polysimult 2, and magically the steps appear. So apps, number 9, polysymbol 2. Make sure that it says 3 equations, 3 unknowns, and then you hit graph, and then you enter the numbers. So the numbers you're entering are 3, 2, there's no number here, there's a 1, -2, then 4, -2, -3, -4, and then 2, 2, 1, -4. Okay, those are the numbers that you're entering, and then you hit graph to solve, and it'll tell you x equals 2, y equals -9, and z equals 10. It'll tell you x1, x2, x3, but since x, y, and z are variables, that's what the answers are going to be. Okay, and I just accepted that. For this one, I did say to do it algebraically. I do want to show you how to get at least some points for this question, which some of you left on the table. So don't ever leave points on the table, please. Okay, so you're going to hit y equals right here. Let's clear what's here and clear the second one as well. So for the first one, you want to type in x squared. So x squared is right here, minus 13x plus 57. And here you want to type in 2x plus 3, and you want to go to graph. So blue line will show up. So if you look, nothing's showing up, right? But the 2x plus 3, there's the straight line. Why isn't the other one showing up? Oh, because this is plus 57. So that means that the graph might be all the way up here at the top. So let's go ahead and hit zoom and go down till we get to, you see zoom fit right here, which is option 0. So I'm going to hit that and let's see what happens. All right, so now I see the first curve. Looks something like a parabola, and boom, right? I can see that it's going to hit maybe twice right here. So I'm going to go ahead and change my window, and I want to change my X, and I want to change the one to the right, which is the max. So let's go ahead and say I do 50, okay? And then I hit graph, and now I'll be able to see the whole thing. And it looks like it's still going to hit twice. So I can do second calc option number 5, which is intersection, and I can go over, enter, 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 and I get 9 comma 21. So there's one of my answers, 9 comma 21. And then for the second one, I do the same thing, second calc option number 5, and I have to move it because it looks like it's going to hit here as well. Enter, 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 and 6 comma 15 is my second answer. That right there would have gotten you partial credit. Okay, partial credit is better than no credit. Here's how you do it algebraically to get full credit. Okay, since both of these are y equals, you can set these two babies equal to each other. So we can go x squared minus 13x plus 57 is equal to 2x plus 3. So what we can do next is move everything to one side. We want to keep this x squared positive, so we can easily factor, or you can do quadratic formula. So minus 2x on both sides, minus 3. Again, set it equal to 0. That's a common theme in algebra, getting it equal to 0. So we get x squared minus 15x plus 54 equals 0. And then here is where you double bubble by using the x. So two numbers that multiply to be 54 and add to be negative 15. Those two numbers, think about it. What are they? What are they? Do we know? Negative 9 and negative 6. Okay. So knowing your times tables does help. Or you can go ahead and use the calculator. Might take you a little bit of time, but you'll still get it. So you have x minus 9, set each of them equal to 0, and x minus 6 equals 0. So here add 9 to both sides, plus 9, and you get x equals 9, or just switch the sign. And this one right here is opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. You do it the same way. And those are your x's. How do you get your y's, right? You literally just store it here. And 9 times 2 plus 3 is equal to 21. If you take 6 and plug it in, 2 times 6 is 12, plus 3 is equal to 15. That's how they got these numbers. So that would give you full credit. Next one right here, we're going to double bubble, and on the bottom right here, we're looking for the one that's common. So we're going to single bubble this bad boy right there. So on the top, again, we're looking for two numbers that add to give you a negative 5 and multiply to give you negative 14. Those two numbers look like 7 and 2 gives us 14. Numbers that multiply to give you 14 are easier to do. For it to give you a negative 5, this 7 has to be negative. So we have x minus 7 and x plus 2. And good. This one on the bottom, 2 goes into both 2 and 8. So I'm going to take the 2 and factor it out. Here there are two x's. Here there's one x. So what's common? One x is in common. So I'm going to take that x and I'm going to factor that out. And if I take out one x, I am left with an x. And I can check that because 2x times x is 2x squared. And then 2x times what gives me 8x, and that is going to be plus 4. And this cannot be simplified any further, so this right here is your answer. All right, last one was extra credit. We're going to learn this. I'm going to teach this to anyone who is interested. You got to get the denominators to be the same. So these two are x plus 3. So I'm going to multiply this one by x plus 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And now, once my denominators are all the same, I can get rid of them, cross them out. So I write down what I am left with, which I am left with x plus 3 times x minus x equals 3. I can do distributive property here. I get x squared plus 3x minus x equals 3. Let's move this 3 over, again with the whole theme of getting it equal to 0. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. I do the double bubble again. That's a 0. What is that? And then we have x. It has to multiply to give us negative 3. So 3 and 1 multiplies to give you 3. And to get a positive 2, this 3 has to be positive, this has to be negative. And then I set both of them equal to 0. That's my dog crying for my attention. So set both of these equal to 0. Subtract 3 from both sides, so you get x equals negative 3. And you get x is equal to 1 here. Switch the sign. And then you check it. Okay, now watch what happens real quick. Let me erase this. Go back to the original, okay? If I take this is a warning, warning. If I take negative 3 and I plug it here, negative 3 plus 3, right? That was one of my answers. That gives us 0. We can never have a 0. So that means that the negative 3 does not work. So the only answer is x equals 1, okay? And you could check it with the calculator. Great job. 22 minutes.